being sent with a note to the local police station. Life is a big mystery, isn't it? It always has been, to find out about things they don't know anything about. I think people are intrigued by mystery, to find out about things they don't know anything about. That's a mystery, to find out about. Life is more sensational, to find out about. Life is more sensational. Life is more sensational. I would say that, how does one describe drama? How does one describe drama? Drama is life with the dull bits cut out. Drama is life with the dull bits cut out. I suppose it must have all started when I was in my mother's arms at the age of 6 months. And she said to me, boo, 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 boo. Scared the something out of me, you know. And scared the something out of me, you know. I have a vague recollection of being scared by a policeman.
All right. So, didn't know that I was going to get a guest to the stream. Everybody say hey to Spicy. Are you going to cause trouble here? I was just going to say that the theme for this stream is directors. All of the spoken word samples come from directors. So far, as you can probably tell, we've heard the voice of Alfred Hitchcock. He probably needs no more introduction than that. The Bird, Psycho, Rear View Window, Vertigo. Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock, master of suspense. That's who we've been hearing so far as the voice, and I will leave it at that so we can hear his mellow, sarcastic, and interesting things to say, and I can get back to fiddling. And if I get up really quick, it's because I'm dressing this kitty. I might have to lock her in the other room, but anyway, without further ado, get back to the music. Give me one moment.
I would say that drama is life with the dull bits cut out. And she said to me, and scared the something out of me, you know, of being shut in a cell as a punishment for being shut in a cell as a punishment for some mishap or I don't even know what it was for. I was probably unjustly incarcerated at the time. But you see, the psychiatrist will always tell you, if you have a fear that is rooted in you and comes from something in your childhood, it doesn't apply to me. I'm still scared of policemen. The moment you can go back to it and release it, all is well. The moment you can go back to it and release it, the moment you can go back to it and release it, all is well. Utterly timid. The moment it doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to me. I'm still scared of policemen. Utterly timid. I'm scared of everything. I think he should understand the psychology of audiences. He should also know that audiences, and that's fear, but for some inexplicable reason, that all started when the mother said boo. They like to, how shall I say, put their toe in the cold water of fear to see what it's like. That's why they go for rides on switchbacks. And scream and then get off giggling. They go higher and higher. And suddenly when they get too high, they get scared and come down again. They're all trying it out. At a shock. Well, Psycho is my first attempt at a shock. They like to, how shall I say, put their toe in the cold water of fear to see what it's like. At a shocker. Well, Psycho is my first attempt. In other words, at a shocker. In other words, it has in its content certain episodes. It has in its content certain episodes. In some sense it could be called a horror film. In some sense it could be called a horror. In some sense it could be called a horror film. But the horror only comes to you after you've seen it. When you get home in the dark. When you get home in the dark. Well, the broad idea. Well, is a young man played by Anthony Perkins who runs a small motel, and she is his mother who runs a small motel, about a 12-unit, a rather cheesy affair really, is his mother, about a 12-unit, a rather cheesy affair really, and in an old house behind homicidal is his mother. And she, I'm afraid, is homicidal. He should put her away, but he loves her too much. So you can imagine what happens to the guests at the motel. You mean you want to make them larger? So you can imagine what happens to the guests at the motel. They're children, you know. They're children. They're children, you know. You mean you want to make them larger cattle than they are? Invariably, they're children, you know, invariably the problem one always has, and they have to be, but they have to have, invariably the problem one always has with actors is coping with their ego, and they have to be, but they have to have the, and they have to be, but they have to have the ego, ultra-sensitive, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do what is asked of them. Nothing so low as that. You see, I make many, many different kinds of pictures. Content I'm not interested in at all. that if you painted a still life, I have no particular preference. To be quite honest, it would depend. Nothing so low as that. You see, I make many, many different kinds of pictures. Content I'm not interested in. I don't give a damn about what the film is about. I'm more interested in how to handle the material to create an emotion in an audience. To create an emotion in an audience. That if you painted a still life of some apples on a plate, that you'd be worrying whether the apples are sweet or sour. Who cares? I don't care myself. Who cares? I don't care myself. That you'd be worrying whether the apples are sweet or sour. Who cares? I don't care myself. Who cares? I don't care myself.
Alright, we've been hearing spoken word samples from Alfred Hitchcock, and we are halfway through the Hitchcock spoken word samples. Don't ask me right now, because I couldn't tell you exactly where the spoken word samples I use in this stream came from. I'll tell you who they are, at least. But wherever you are watching or listening to this, you should be able to look in the description and find links to the unedited speech to get a listen to the full thing if you're interested. And you know, most of the things that I sample, most of the people that I sample are interesting, if you ask my biased opinion. Anyway, so we're going to continue the theme of directors and Hitchcock with the second half of the Hitchcock samples coming right up.
considering the weather over there, I'm surprised. Yes, considering the weather over there, I'm surprised. Am I crazy? How long did I think? How long did? Yes, considering the weather over there, they allow a certain amount of music in English television when I was over there. In English television when I was over there. Yes, considering the weather. How long did I... They allow a certain amount of nudity. They allow a certain amount of nudity. They allow a certain amount of nudity. Yes, considering the weather over there, I'm surprised. They allow a certain... How long did I think nudity would last on the screen? And if you wouldn't think me too vulgar in saying I said that all breath... If you wouldn't think me too vulgar in saying I said that all breasts sag eventually. I think I said I was accused of calling actors cattle, and I said that I think I said I was accused of calling actors cattle, and I said that I would never say such an unfeeling, rude thing. I would never say such an unfeeling, rude thing where you have jaded about actors at all. What I probably said was that all actors should be treated like cattle. What I probably... That was the famous Carol Lombard.
Carol Lombard.
Yes, and she was a woman with a great sense of humor. And she'd had a corral built. And in it were 3 live calves with the names of the actors. And in it were 3 live calves with the names of the actors. That was the famous Carol Lombard.
Carol Lombard.
Yes. And she was a woman with a great sense of humor. And she'd had a corral built. And in it were 3 live calves with the names of the actors. Walt Disney had the right... if I may interrupt you a moment. Walt Disney had the right idea. If he didn't like the actors, he tore them up. and in it were 3 live calves with the name. And in it were 3 live calves with a close-up of him. I describe a scene such as in the picture Rear Window, where you have James Stewart. I describe a scene where you have James Stewart, a close-up of him, and he looks, you see, and you cut, and you cut, and you cut. We'll say, for example, a woman nursing a baby. We'll say, for example, a woman nursing a baby. So what have you done? Now you go back to Mr. Stewart, and he smiles. So what have you demonstrated? That he's a nice, benevolent gentleman. Now take the middle piece of film away. Now take the middle piece of film away. He looks, he sees. Now cut to a girl in a bikini. And he smiles. And he smiles. And he smiles. Now he's a dirty old man. Exact same smile, the same look. The subject has changed. Well, I did it years ago with an actress, and I found her very difficult. Look there, look down. Look across, move around. Look there, look down. She said, look here, look across, move around. Another actress, and I used all her hand. And it was the prelude to a murder scene. Well, that was because I made the terrible mistake.
All right. We've been hearing words from Alfred Hitchcock, and we are going to now move to a different director. I hope I don't butcher his name too much. I've read it a lot, but I have not actually said it in real life very often. Werner Herzog. Werner Herzog, Grizzly Man, Fitzcarraldo, German guy who has been memed many times, has a very specific way of speaking. It's kind of very deadpan. I think you may recognize his voice when you hear it, which will be any second as we get back to the tunes. We are sampling the voices of directors for this stream with Werner Herzog. Werner Herzog.
and overwhelming lack of order.
It's like death staring at you when you look at a camera.
Now we test him. How do you feel about the high salaries of today's baseball players?
It's like death staring at you when you look at a camera.
Nobody has yet begun to suspect the impending doom.
Have the monks stopped meditating? Have the monks stopped meditating? They all seem to be tweeting.
It's like a curse weighing on an entire landscape. And whoever goes too deep into this share of that curse. So we are cursed with what we are doing here. So we are cursed with what we are doing here. Has created in anger. It's a land that God, if He exists, has created in anger. Overwhelming and collective murder. It's the only land where, taking a close look at what's around us, where creation is unfinished yet, the harmony of overwhelming and collective murder. Taking a close look at the harmony of overwhelming and collective murder. And we, in comparison to the articulate vileness and baseness and obscenity of all this jungle, we, in comparison to that enormous we only sound and look like badly pronounced and half-finished sentences out of we, in comparison to that badly pronounced and half-finished sentences out of a stupid suburban novel, a cheap novel. We only sound and look like, of all this jungle, we only sound and look like overwhelming misery, and in front of this overwhelming growth and overwhelming lack of order. Even the stars up here in the sky look like a mess. And over... and overwhelming lack of order. Even the stars up here in the sky look like a mess.
Gentlemen, we've been doing a lot of funny things today, but now I must be scary. I am not Willy Wonka. I am not Willy Wonka. Gentlemen, we've been doing a lot of funny things today, but now I must be scary.
Is there such thing as insanity among penguins? Is there such thing as insanity among penguins? I try to avoid the definition of insanity or derangement. I don't mean that a penguin might believe he or she is Lenin or Napoleon Bonaparte.
As always, the frisk.
But could they just go crazy because they've had enough of their colony? But could they just go crazy because they've had enough of their colony?
Here I differ with Treadwell. He seemed to ignore the fact that in nature there are predators. I believe the common denominator of the universe. Is not harmony, but chaos, hostility, and murder.
So we have to declare holy war against, I think there should be what we see every single day on television, commercials, and there should be real war against commercials, real war against talk shows, real war against Bonanza and Rawhide or all these things. Real war against Bonanza and Rawhide or all these things.
And what haunts me is that in all the faces of all the bears that Treadwell ever filmed, I discover no kinship, no understanding, no mercy.
But could they just go crazy?
I discover no kinship. I see only the overwhelming indifference of nature. Here I differ with Treadwell. I see only the overwhelming indifference of nature. This blank stare speaks only of a half-bored interest in food.
And I was shot and I had a leather jacket. It was some sort of equivalent. It was some sort during a BBC interview. I was shot on camera while I was out. During a BBC interview, I was shot on camera while I was out near Lookout Mountain. It was some sort of equivalent to road rage. And I was shot and I had a leather jacket and a catalogue inside, and it was not such a serious bullet anyway. So I was only slightly wounded. Then I didn't even realize what had happened. And I thought the camera had exploded. And something had hit and burnt me. And something had hit and burnt me. And something had hit and burnt me. No, I didn't want to have police. Part of the crew fled. And I only realized when I see the sound. Part of the crew fled, and something had hit and burnt me. And I only realized when I see the sound man ducking and hitting the ground. And now I didn't want to have police. Called, because when you report to police you have been shot at by a man with a rifle, they send out a helicopter and a SWAT team. They would have overreacted, and I thought. This was not a serious bullet. This is part of the folklore out of here. I've been shot at with much more serious bullets before in my life, and what I'm trying to say, it's something very exhilarating for a man to be shot at with little success.
Alright, the spoken word samples that we are hearing in today's stream come from directors, and that was the voice of Werner Herzog that we were just hearing. We will pick back up with some more Werner Herzog samples, the second half of him as the second director that we are sampling, Werner Herzog. Interesting, very intense German guy.
think it is one of the greatest stupidities and the greatest mistakes. There's something finally and definitively wrong about psychoanalysis.
They are a disease of our time. Should we all just put...
And I saw a filmmaker whom I know since 35 years. So for me a chair is a chair. So for me a chair is a chair. So for me a chair is a chair. And I do not reference to other possibilities. And I do not reference to other possibilities. What could the chair refer to in a very simple, very simple, in a very simple, for me a man. What could the chair refer? What could the chair refer? I have the feeling this man is gay. I turned to my wife and I said, whom I know since 35 years, John Waters, whom I know since 35 years, 2 weeks ago or so. And I turned to my wife, we talked 2 weeks ago or so, John Waters. And I turned to my wife, we talked backstage. After 35 years of knowing John Waters, I turned to my wife and I said to her, I have the feeling this man is gay.
Alright. That last voice that we were just hearing was Werner Herzog, who was the second great director that we're sampling for today's stream. Started with Hitchcock. And then Herzog. And we have one final third director we'll be sampling tonight, the spoken word of. Appreciate you coming along on this trip. Hope you've had a cool, chill time hanging. I know that there's a lot going on out there in the world, and if I can help anyone escape for a moment, then that would be really great. Escape and into a different world just for a moment, you know. Anyway, so yeah, we finished up with Herzog, and we are now on my favorite director, I would say, David Lynch. So we're going to be hearing, the voice of David Lynch next in the samples.
if you move it to the leg, or but when you start, nature can teach us a lot of things, and there's something about in painting, you're working within a certain shaped canvas. In painting, you're working within a certain shaped canvas, and there's many things that one does intuitively. But when you start looking at a duck, you see your eye is moving in a certain way, and you see textures and colors and shapes, and you start wondering about a duck. What it can teach us about, any kind of abstract, painting. And it always is interesting that the eye is in the perfect place. If you move it to the leg or the beak, it's two kind of fast areas competing. Even though the eye is the fastest, it's the little jewel. While there's slow and fast, it's two kind of fast areas competing. If you move it to the leg or the beak, while there's slow and fast, if you move it to the leg or the beak, while there's slow and fast, it's two kind of fast areas competing. Even though the eye is the fastest, it's the little jewel. An empty room is a certain speed, and that proportion is an empty room is a certain speed. I think a person is around a 7. I think a person is around a 7. Intricately designed, decorative room is pretty. Sometimes it's intricately designed, decorative room is pretty disturbing. Sometimes it's too fast. Sometimes it's too fast. But then if you put something slow in it, it could work beautifully. In a busy room and a person, they fight each other. Intricately designed, decorative room is, I think a person is around a 7. Fire and electricity can go up to a 9, for instance, or a really intricately designed, decorative room is pretty disturbing. It's a relationship thing, I think. In a busy room and a person, they fight each other. It's a relationship thing, I think. In a busy room and a person, they fight each other. Fast and slow areas. I believe every film has the eye of the duck scene, but it can fool you. I think a person is around a 7. Strangely, the eye of the duck scene is. If you have a golf, strangely, the eye of the duck scene is the ending. When you read of strangely, the eye of the duck scene is the ending. you read a book, strangely, the eye of the duck. If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness, when you read a book, you'll have a golf ball-sized understanding. When you look out, a golf ball-sized awareness. And when you wake up in the morning, a golf ball-sized wakefulness. But if you could expand that consciousness, but if you could expand that consciousness, I believe which one? It's consciousness. I believe every film, and it's right at the source. Which one it is. And it's right at the source. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi teaches a technique. If you have a golf ball-sized consciousness, right at the source of thought, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi teaches a technique. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi teaches a technique called transcendental meditation. It's a simple, easy, effortless technique. It's a simple, easy, effortless technique that allows any human being to dive within, experiencing subtler levels of mind and intellect, and transcend and experience this ocean of pure consciousness. This pure consciousness is and transcend and experience this ocean of pure consciousness. This pure consciousness is called by modern physics. This pure consciousness, it's at the base of all mind and all matter. And they now say modern science says, and there's an ocean, all of matter, everything that is a thing emerges from this field. Everything that is a thing emerges from this field. And this field has qualities. And this field has you enliven it.
Alright, we have reached the last section of samples for this stream, which is David Lynch. We've been hearing the spoken word, the speech of directors of Alfred Hitchcock, Werner Herzog, and now David Lynch. You can check out the links in the description to find the full unedited speech. All of the music is improvised and made up, and hopefully together it turns into something. Anyway, so I'm going to finish up here with the last samples from David Lynch, and yeah, appreciate coming along for the trip, for the journey. And we'll see how this ends up.
And I took this anger out on my first wife, kind of a depression filled with fears, kind of a depression. When I started meditating, I was filled with anxieties, filled with fears, kind of a depression and anger, and anger, and anger, and anger, and anger. And I took this after 2 weeks, and I took this anger out on my first wife. And after 2 weeks of meditation, she comes to me and she says, "What's going on?" And I was quiet for a moment because it could have been any number of things she might have been referring to. And she said, "This anger, where did it go?" And I didn't even realize it had lifted. And I didn't even realize it had lifted. And I didn't even realize it had lifted. Beautiful things in a story. They're like anger and depression and sorrow. Like anger and depression and sorrow. And I didn't even realize it had lifted. Now, these negative things, like anger and depression and sorrow, they're beautiful things in a story. But they're like a poison to the filmmaker. They're a poison to the painter. They're poison to creativity. They're like a vice grip. They're like a vice grip. If you are super depressed, you can't hardly get out of bed, let alone think ideas, have that creativity flowing. It's money in the bank. So, to get that beautiful consciousness growing, which is flowing creativity, the ability to catch ideas at a deeper level, which is flowing creativity, intuition grows. This field is a field of pure knowingness. You dive in there, you sort of just know how to go. You dive in there, you sort of just know how to go. You dive in there, you sort of just know how to go.
They're poison to the painter. They're like a vice grip. They're like a vice grip. If you are super depressed, you can't hardly get out of bed, but think ideas, money in the bank be flowing. It's money in the bank. The enjoyment of life grows huge. You dive in there, you sort of just know how to go. This field is a field of pure knowingness. You dive in there, you sort of just know how to solve solutions. It's like an ocean of solutions. And you can just feel this thing growing. But the ultimate thing for me is the enjoyment of the doing. But the ultimate thing for me is the enjoyment of the doing. Enjoyment of life grows huge. I love making films now more than any enjoyment of life grows huge. I love making films now more than ever before. Ideas flow more. Everybody has more fun on the set. Creativity flows. Creativity flows. There's no people look like creativity flows. There's no people look like friends and not like enemies. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it's us. In Vedic science, this field of pure consciousness is called Atma, the self of us all. At that level, as in Vedic science, this field of pure consciousness is called Atma, the self of us all. It's a great thing for the film. I think I had so many anxieties and fears, and I felt those lifting. And bliss is a thing in this field, the unified field. And bliss is a thing in this field, the unified field. And bliss is a thing in this field, the unified field. Bliss is physical, emotional, mental, spiritual happiness. And you can vibrate with this bliss. And it's this happiness from within. They have a saying, true happiness isn't out there, true happiness lies within. And I always wondered, where is this within? And they don't say where it is, and then they don't even say how to get to it. But with transcendental meditation, to me, the key is the word transcend. This is the beauty of this technique. There's lots of forms of meditation. It's a huge realm between the surface of life and this fundamental, pure consciousness, but it's there. And when you're in it, you know you're in it. It's familiar, but it's you. It's a thick beauty. And why suffer? Suffering starts to go. You gotta know about anger. You gotta have energy. You gotta have clarity to create. Happiness, but it's a thick beauty to appreciate life. It's a thick beauty to appreciate life and living. And why suffer? And why suffer? Suffering starts to go. You gotta be able to catch ideas. You gotta be able to be strong enough to fight unbelievable pressure and stress and the whole thing in this world. lift, because this whole thing is tied to world peace, but it's going to be a better world, but it's still a very tough world. And this just gives you more and more and more ability to say, it's way, 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 way better. It just looks beautiful. It's way